All right, guys, welcome to my first workshop, which is going to be focused on creativity and originality, also my mindset in breaking. I like to take this usually as my first workshop when I am teaching people when getting into originality and creativity, because this is something I really enjoy in breaking. I love the character aspect in breaking. I love the originality aspect in breaking. This is an art, outside of the dance. So we should be creating and we should be making up our own moves and our own characters, right? So with that being said, I just want to talk about just basically going to go through some of my mindset, a little bit of history, some information, tips and tricks for you guys that if you are in a rut, yeah, I'm here to help out. So first is first. The mindset that I have in breaking is something that I call an action figure mindset. This comes from way back when I was younger, very young, playing with toys. Obviously, I'm still building model kits and whatnot, but when you're younger and you're actually playing with action figures, and you're setting them up, and like scenarios, your mind is like off in the distance, like creating these crazy movies in your head, and you're taking these action figures and you're posing them, right? And I know what you're thinking, like maybe action figure and I was making poses, and you take an action figure, you just make some poses, and then you try to do it in real life. It's not like this. It's not my mindset. Mindset is about when I was younger and I would take these action figures and I would pose them, right? So, if we're saying a G.I. Joe holding up something, right? You would take his arm and you would lift it up, right? And it would stay. It would just be up there sticking, right? So you can pose action figures whatever way you wanted to. So I took this aspect of playing with action figures and I applied this into my breaking. My body is technically the action figure, right? So I like to take limbs. I like to think about certain parts of, my body that will connect or will have interesting transitions, connecting them or posing them. So that's technically my main thought process of when I am trying to create different moves. I'll usually go into this mindset of where, and I'll get into this once we get into the workshop, but what can we do with a certain body part once we are in a certain position? Okay, so action figure mindset is the mindset that I usually go off of. All right, I like to take limbs, and or not even limbs, like even just parts of my body, and make threads from them, just stuff that you wouldn't really think about, right? So for instance, we all see this, people doing footwork and then they put their hand on their head and then they thread, right? This is probably the most basic thread. It's not bad, this is very mid. And for me, I like to kind of go above and beyond. I think everybody should always go above and beyond, especially when creating. I think a lot of people get stuck in this mindset of, I just created something dope and that's it. They leave it. It's probably the wrong mindset to have, because what happens usually is a lot of people have this mindset, which ends up having a lot of people saying, that's my move, I created it. There's a lot of I can see a lot of coincidences nowadays with moves being very easy to create, and there's a possibility that guy created it, right? So I think the mindset that you guys need to have is to create on top of it, and then create on top of it again. Okay, I work in a lot of threes with breaking, just because I think two is not enough, three is there, but four is a little bit too much. So I work with a lot of threes when I am teaching breaking. So talking about that, leveling up, right? You always want to make sure you're leveling up. So if you create something dope and you're like, okay, for instance, I don't know, if I'm doing footwork and I throw my hand up, right, like this, cool. That seems interesting, right? In some certain position. Would I settle for that? Probably not. So I would probably turn it this way, right? So it would go from here to here. Now, the more you are adding on to it, the more you're giving leadway and room for somebody else biting that move if they're doing 3 things in a row that's exactly what you created, then most likely they took your stuff. Okay, now I'm not saying it's all the time. Sometimes there's coincidence, but what we're trying to do is future proof your move to not be bitten. And if somebody is doing it, it will be pretty much basically like pretty out there, right? Like you'll be able to tell, hey, that's not just one move, that's like a that's 3 moves connected into like that, sequence that, hey, that's my stuff. Okay. So what we want to focus on when creating is always going above and beyond. Okay, 3 steps above, 2 steps above after the first step, obviously, just to make sure no one is taking our stuff. All right, so back to action figure mindset. Just some other like kind of examples that I want to give you guys. It doesn't have to be just in footwork. It doesn't have to be any specific, point that you are breaking. Transitions are, and I will get to this in later workshops down the line, because there's a lot to teach in breaking. So when I am talking about moves and movements, we have to kind of think outside of just what the moves are, right? When we talk about the way that we learn a 6-step, right? We learn a 6-step because each move in that 6-step is used as a foundational ground to link other moves into, right? So, for example, if we're just doing a 6-step and we get to, if you're doing a basic 6-step, you're stepping in and you're getting to the hook, right? How many people use this hook, right? And how many ways can we go about using this hook position, right? We have to think of not just a 6-step being like that. Every foundational normal move that is given to us for structure, we have to think that way, right? And I think people just kind of cut moves off very fast after they learn them. Flares, for example. Flare is not just one move. We have to think more than what a flare is. A flare is multiple body positions and parts being on the ground, all being used at the same time. And again, I think when we talk about transitioning into and out of a flare, a lot of people kind of just sit with the basic. Oh, I did this footwork move into a flare, and then after the flare, I did something else. But inside that flare is multiple moves. I have a workshop actually on YouTube that's up for free, that if you guys want to go check it out, it talks a little bit more in detail about flares. But that's the way that we should be thinking about every move, right? Halos are the same way. Head hollowbacks, one-handed head hollowbacks, even a baby freeze is technically part of a halo if we're getting into a transitioning out of it. But every move has multiple avenues in it. Okay, I think people think just because you got a halo, you do the halo and that's all you got to do. No. A halo is multiple moves in one move. All right, it will help you out with multiple moves, and I think it's something that I just want to talk about right now because this is the first workshop that I am teaching. So later down the line, when I do go over some of the stuff, you guys do know. But that's a little bit of what I want you guys to start opening your minds up to. Your breaking is much more than what was given to us, and you can do much more than what was given to us. Now there is a limit to what we can and you can do anything, but what you probably shouldn't do. There's a lot of rules, unwritten rules that people just don't really talk about a lot, especially if you're a newcomer into breaking. You're just not going to know, right? So I don't want to sit here and tell you you're not a breaker for these reasons. A lot of people don't know a lot of these reasons. It's partly why workshops, people should talk more. We should kind of teach more rather than just showing you stuff that I can just learn on YouTube. That's not important. All right. I can show you how to do a 3-step. I can show you how to do, coffee grinders or a 7-step or a 12-step, whatever. Some people have moves I've never even heard about before, and apparently they're foundational. Okay. So I'm also kind of lost in that, as probably as much as you are. But those moves are not that important. I mean, those moves aren't as important as teaching you how to enter a cipher correctly, or teaching you cipher etiquette in general. There's a lot of people that need to be taught this. There's people that have been dancing for 10 years and still don't know good cipher etiquette. Which is why I'm kind of sitting on these workshops, and I'm kind of going to go through a lot of this through the year that I go through my Patreon. So, okay, talking a lot. Let's get back into it. Going back to footwork and going back to this action figure mindset, right? I'm going to give you guys some other examples, okay? Now, when we are going into and out of things, something that I focus on is after I do create something from a position, you can either create out of something, or you can just create on the spot, right? So I'll give you an example. We were just talking about a hook, right? From this position, okay? Simple hook. What can we do from this position, right? This is when you start to think. This is when a lot of people start labbing, and you're kind of just sitting on the floor. You start to think, okay, well, I can grab my foot. I can grab my leg, okay? It's where a lot of people just stop. Oh, I can put my hand here and I can thread through, right? A lot of people probably already thought about that. So I wouldn't really go that route. This is the part where we have to kind of start expanding our minds a little bit more. So for instance, I will take you through my thought process of certain things. From a hook position, I'll grab my foot, right? Keep it extremely basic. I'm grabbing my foot. What can I do with my foot here, right? A bunch of possibilities I can do. I can take my foot and I can throw it, right? Or let's go another route. I can take my foot and I can bend back, okay? Or I can take my foot and I can go under this way with it and reverse it, right? So from this position, and just by me grabbing my foot, a bunch of possibilities that you can do, all right? In this action figure mindset. Now, not everybody's going to be in this mindset, and I don't think you should be in that mindset the entire time. This mindset should be used to mainly focus on getting a tech to kind of get the engine started, right? Into getting into more footwork, into getting into something else. Basically what I'm gonna kind of go through right now is thought process of creating, right? We're kind of also going to talk about flow as well. So let me kind of just go off with flow, and then we'll get into this process of why I like to kind of keep leveling up. We're going to take something super simple, right? Just a normal go down, okay? Your job from a go down is to get from the top to the floor, correct? Normal go down. So we want to get from here, and we want to go down. Well, let me see. We want to get from here, and we want to go down to the floor, right? So this is where we start to think, okay, I want to do a go down, right? I want to make a go down up. Now, job is to get from point A to point B, but we're kind of gonna stretch this out, right? So we're gonna be doing a couple of things in between this, all right? So you start thinking, all right, action figure mindset, right? I want to go from top to the bottom. So what can I do? Process. I'll go through the exact way that I kind of created this one go down that I have, all right? So I think, okay, so I can easily, which is what a lot of people do, I can grab my knee, okay? A lot of people grab your knee, and then I'm going to push it to the floor, and then I'm going to go to my back, okay? Cool, right? I mean, it makes sense. It's you're doing a little something extra. So, is that enough though? So, you're just topping, you take your knee and you go to the floor, okay? Is that something? Yeah, I guess so, right? But your mind shouldn't stop there, right? That's part one, okay? It's part one of the whole entire thing. So now what you think is, okay, so I don't want to be like everybody else, right? Because I see other people do this. They just take their knee, they go to the floor, and then they go to their back, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to step it up a little bit, okay? So you start thinking. You have all these limbs on you, right? Instead of taking my hand, what else can I use to take my knee and go to the floor, right? Well, you can think of your elbow, right? So, you're topping, you stop, you take your elbow, you go down, and you go to your back, right? So that's kind of cool, right? It's all right. That's another thing. That's another way, right? But for me, I was like, okay, elbow is still part of the arm. Let's go a little bit more out there. Like, let's use my foot, okay? So we'll use my foot to my knee, okay? So we're topping, we're gonna take our foot and we're gonna go down, okay? Cool. Step one, okay? Again, I'm not somebody that's like, okay, this is dope, let's keep it. So we have to keep leveling it up, okay? So I start to think, okay, what else can we do to get from the top down to the floor? How can I take from A to the knee? How can I change this up a little bit, right? So I'm not just doing some tops and then I'm going to grab it with my foot. No, let's switch this foot to knee part up and think of something we can do. So you start to think action figure mindset, right? Well, I can take my foot and I can kick my knee, right? So it's out this way. And then I can grab my knee and push it down to the floor into my back, okay? So now we just upgraded it, right? So instead of me just grabbing my foot, going over my knee, or grabbing my knee and pushing to the floor, we have something in between now, right? That's adding more steps to what it is. So now if I see somebody do that, true, it could be a coincidence, but it's still gonna spread out and give you more leadway for people not to bite that because you have little steps in between. All right. So again, body parts, limbs. Think of it. I gave you an example of using your hand, using your elbow, using your foot, and then with that being done, we should be connecting it together. Okay. It should be a fluid motion. So this is where we start to get into flow. And flow, I want you guys to know, like, flow is not about, flow is not some like weird, like, movement when you're dancing. Like, it's nothing like that. Flow is about comfortability. People say, where do you get your flow from? Like, how do you practice flow? There's no practice to do flow besides practicing your moves over and over and over again. All right. You can make certain moves look completely different just by the way that you do them. It's not just the moves, it's about the movements. All right. On top of you creating your moves. Okay. So, with that being said, let's do another exercise of starting from the top, going down to the floor. Okay. So when I talk about doing steps of 3, okay, this is when I think about fluid motions, comfortability. So what we're going to do, it's usually an exercise I give to people when I'm in person with them. We're going to take 3 moves and we're going to combine them into a fluid motion to make one simple flow. All right. This is a good practice for flowing. Okay. 3 moves, 1 flow. Technically 3 moves become 1 move, okay? It comes down to a point where we're not really thinking of 3 moves anymore. It's kind of just 1 motion at this point, okay? So we will start with, we'll do a simple go down again, all right? So starting from the top, how can we get down to the floor, all right? I'm gonna take this a little bit more basic because we're not gonna really talk about action figure mindset so much this way. For this part. So step 1, okay? We're just going to do a simple go down, okay? And it's going to be, we're just going to go to the floor, okay? We're just going to spin down, okay? So simple. You guys don't have to follow me. You guys don't need to do this. I'm just kind of getting my point across of where I'm getting at with flow, okay? So First move is just going to be a simple go down. Okay, from here. Move 2. This is when you start to think, okay, I'm in this position. What can I do from this position? All right. So you start to think, I have this opening right here between my knee and the ground. I can easily just thread through, right? Now, when I say thread, I'm not talking about the normal thread where people grab their foot and they thread. We'll get to that right after, right? So usually what I look for is any kind of holes or anything that we can go through, okay? Arms going through, legs going through, and then we take the process of thinking of our body and our limbs. Okay, what's something else besides arms and feet that we can go through, right? We talk about, maybe I want to try to get my shoulder through, right? You can try it, and sometimes that ends up just being a weird movement that you just end up taking, right? So we got to go, you basically got to start thinking outside of just the generic foot, the generic leg, the generic threads, all right? So this is where you just got to keep opening up your mind, okay? But back to flow. So we're down on the ground, right? Step 2, we're going to go right underneath, right? And we're going to grab this foot, okay? So again, starting from up top. We're starting from up top. We're going to do go down here. We're going under. So now you start to think, okay, we're at step 2. What can we do from this? Well, there's a bunch of stuff we can do from this. So I can either thread through, which is what I'm going to probably do. We can either, from here, grab your foot. We can slide. From here, we'll grab your foot. We're going over. Okay? There's so many combinations that we can do, okay? And this is only the second part of this, okay? So part 2, we're just going to keep it simple. I'm going to do a normal thread, okay? Now, when I talk about a normal thread, that is just a normal thread. It is very basic. This whole entire thing is just basic moves right now, okay? Just to get this point across, going over flow. So what we're going to do, 3 moves, right? So start from the top. 1, 2, 3, okay? 3 moves, 1 flow, okay? Your job is to make 3 moves into 1 flow, okay? So what you would need to do is practice this over and over and over again until it's 1 fluid motion. I like to talk about cursive. I don't know how many people write in cursive nowadays, but that is probably the best way I can describe flow, is like writing in cursive. Everything connects together. You have your periods, you have your explanations, they stop. That's what it's about, okay? So again, from standing up top, if we're going to make this 1 fluid motion, there's no stopping, okay? So it's 1 fluid motion. From the top, we go down, continue to move here, okay? So again, you get faster and faster and faster. From top, 1 motion, okay? So 3 moves into 1 motion. This is the mindset of connecting a lot of my text together to make little sections, okay? Little sections that can just be thrown out technically anywhere. So when I'm talking about flow, these moves, so a lot of my texts that come from, or a lot of my flows that are being put out, like when I am just running them, they're basically a couple of moves combined together to make 1 clean flow from it. It's technically the mindset of all of that. With all this talk about this action figure mindset, what I'm going to want you guys to do just this month until the next workshop comes out is going to be creating just do this for yourself to see how it feels, to see if it kind of gets your mind going. I know a lot of people get into ruts. They kind of just stick in the same situation, the same exact motions. They kind of get bored with breaking after a while. This will kind of spark up your brain a little bit, I hope. So what I want you guys to do is to just create 1 simple flow, maybe 2 simple flows within this month. And when I'm talking about flows, I'm talking about 3 moves. And when I'm talking about 3 moves, I mean it's 3 dope moves all together, okay? The examples I gave you today, very basic. If you really want to, if you're newer and you just want to try them ones out, by all means, go for it. But I will say this is my mind process. This is a action figure mindset for breaking for what I do. This does not require, it's not going to be 100% accurate. You're not going to make up dope stuff every single time you do it. It's time consuming. It's the reason why I'm not making up something every single day. If it was easy, we would all be amazing. It takes time. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot, especially for practicing flow, guys, it takes a lot of practice. So again, I just touched on a lot of these topics today. I don't like to overwhelm people with the amount of talking I'm going to be doing on these on the matter. So today I kind of just touched base on a little bit of stuff on my mindset and creativity and originality. I want you guys to like kind of just take this all in slowly. Don't go crazy with it. But for the next month, just try to make up a flow or two. If you want to, send them through my DMs on Instagram, obviously, or talk to me through Patreon. But next month, I'll probably be getting into another workshop that's going to be a little bit more like move focused versus talking. This is more so of an introduction workshop. So with that being said, thank you guys for coming to this. I'm looking forward to next month. I'm looking forward to all you guys joining the Patreon. It's going to be exciting. It's only going to go up from here. So thank you, and I'll see you next month. Deuces.